Hello, it is Friday, May 1st, and it would be an A day. It's a pretty gloomy day outside, perfect day for reading or napping like Loco is currently doing. And for today's video, I'm going to talk about graphic novels. And graphic novels are a pretty awesome medium when it comes to literature. They originally didn't really get a whole lot of respect. They were thought of as being something just merely as pop culture, not having a lot of value. And, there was a couple of really important graphic novels that came out a couple decades ago that really started to change the conversation about them. And after those came out, you really started to see a lot more inclusion of graphic novels in classrooms, which has been awesome because they are a terrific piece of literary work. And to exclude them is a mistake, I think, personally. And if we can, talk about them on a broader spectrum and use them in classrooms, I think it's important that we do. So I'm going to recommend a couple. I'm going to start with one that I think is a must read for anyone. It's a very powerful graphic novel, and it's one of those, I think, that really started to push the conversation about the importance of graphic novels, and that's this, Mouse by Art Spiegelman. Art Spiegelman is this amazing writer and artist. He grew up in New York City. His parents were actual survivors of the Auschwitz death camp during the Holocaust, and he channeled that experience into this graphic novel, which deals with those horrific atrocities, but through the perspective of, a mouse, the mice being representative of the Jewish people and cats being representative of the Nazis. And again, we're dealing with an incredibly difficult and serious subject matter, but done through a graphic novel. And, he won multiple awards for this. There's several different volumes for the series, and it's a definite read. You have to check this out to talk about, how amazing graphic novels can be. But I want to give a couple other suggestions for students to check out that I think would be really great reads, in your time off, just to read, just for enjoyment's sake, for starters, but also to get some different perspectives, to reach out and try different things and to learn some new things. So, I've, over the last 5 or 10 years, seen a lot more of my students reading graphic novels. I think one of the most common ones I've seen in my classroom are the books by Raina Telgemeier, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, not that you'll ever watch this video, but I apologize. But Raina Telgemeier, she wrote the Smile series of books, Smile, Sisters, Drama. There's a bunch of them. And those have been incredibly popular amongst my students, and, probably for good reason. She's won the Eisner Award, which is a pretty amazing thing. So, a lot of students are starting to read these. And, even my son reads several different graphic novels, a little bit lower level, but still, they're great things. So the first one I want to suggest is called The Arrival. And The Arrival is written by Sean Tan, and it deals with the experience of being an immigrant and moving to a new land. And obviously, this is a pretty powerful experience to talk about. And for me, it's a deeply personal one because my father was an immigrant. He moved to America when he was 17. So I connect really strongly with that. But I think it's important for everyone to see this type of experience because it's a big part of the American experience. Immigration is how this country came to be. So I think that's a great one to start with, but it's also powerful for a different reason. It's wordless, right? It's a graphic novel, and it relies completely on the graphic piece of it. And imagery is incredibly powerful, and visual imagery, of course, can do a lot. You can learn so much from it. You can derive so much meaning from it. And this book relies completely on it to tell a story. So I think it's awesome to check it out just to see how well you can tell a story without actual words. And, just give that a shot, particularly for those students out there who have any interest in drawing and going into some kind of career where they want to tell stories in a visual medium. That's a definite one to check out. So The Arrival, Sean Tan. All right, the next one is El Deafo. El Deafo was written by Cece Bell, and it deals with the story of a girl who is deaf and uses a device called the phonic ear, and having to cope with that identity of being someone who is disabled and feels different. And how do you cope with that self-identification? And again, for that perspective alone, it's a powerful and important book to read. But also just that whole concept of feeling isolated or feeling different is something I think all middle school students connect with and understand. So just for that alone, I think would be great to read it. So El Defo by C.C. Bell is a great one. Pashmini. Pashmini is another great book. This one, again, dealing with issues that I think middle school students can relate to, but from a slightly different perspective. This is a story of a young girl who is taken away from her home country in India and taken by her mother, and she starts to wonder what India was like, what was her father like, and why they had to leave. And through the course of the graphic novel, she starts having these dreams of this version of India that's very similar to a Bollywood movie. And, she starts to wonder if that's the real version of India. So it's a wonderful book from a different perspective, and I think an important perspective. Great visuals, of course, which is important for a graphic novel. And that was written by Nidhi Chinani. And again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. I trust me, I empathize. My last name is terrible for people to pronounce, so I'm sorry if I'm doing horrible injustices to these people's names. And the last book I have on my list of books to recommend is actually a collection of books dealing with the Native American mythos, and that's the Trickster. So Trickster in different Native American stories is a common character. A trickster being this spirit or individual who is a godlike being who is not necessarily bad or good, but exists to entertain himself or herself, right? Think of it, if you have to pop culture, like the Loki kind of like character, right? Mischievous. And this collection of stories, and the editor is Matt Dembicki, I believe, is a collection of different trickster tales from different Native American groups. And we need to understand that all of the nations had their own tellings and versions of this. And I remember back in my college days taking a lot of different Native American literature courses with a wonderful professor, Professor Lalonde, up at SUNY Oswego, who was fantastic and really introduced a lot of amazing Native American literature to us. And we read different trickster stories. I believe we read some by the Lakota and so forth, and Choctaw. So that's a great series of stories to read because, again, a different perspective, one particularly not often heard, and I think one, again, being American, we need to hear. So that's it for this video. Check out some graphic novels. There's also a whole subset of graphic novels that take classic pieces of literature and redo them in a graphic novel format as a way to make them a little bit easier to understand. I know that Beowulf, that what is often considered the first piece of actually written English literature, although it's written in Old English, so most of you wouldn't be able to read it. That has a graphic novel. There's a lot of graphic novels for Shakespearean works and so forth. So, that's a whole different avenue that you could approach to start checking out graphic novels if you wanted to explore some of these ancient pieces of literature and classical literature from a perspective that might be a little easier for you to tackle for the first time. All right, so that's it. Hope everyone's doing well. We just started May. We also just got news about school closures, so we'll keep on trucking. All of your teachers will be here to support you, and we'll get through this. Trust me. All right, that's it. Loco probably sees Nacho on the other side of the door and is desperate to tackle him, so I think I need to turn this off before they go nuts. Have a good weekend. I'll see you soon.